Hey everybody, it's Mr. Haskell, and I'm back with more things you should know by being alive. And today I want to talk about something else from the Revolutionary period. I seem to be kind of stuck there, don't I? But I want to talk about the Stamp Act Congress, and I want to talk about what it was, why it mattered, and how it set the stage for American resistance. So here we go. What was the Stamp Act? So, in 1765, the British Parliament passed the Stamp Act, which required colonists to buy stamped paper for legal documents, newspaper, playing cards, other stuff. And what makes this unique was that it was the first direct tax that was imposed upon the colonies. It aimed to help pay for British troops that were stationed in North America after the French and Indian War. Now, colonists were arguing that famous phrase, no taxation without representation. So, you want to give us a tax, you want to tax us, fine, give us a seat in Parliament. Otherwise, they believed that the only taxes that could be placed upon them were by their own colonial legislatures, not by the British Parliament. So, this leads to some colonial anger and a degree of resistance. The Stamp Act angered merchants and lawyers and printers and everyday colonists. So you end up with protests and boycotts, and these riots start breaking out, and they begin targeting tax collectors and British officials. And so to coordinate resistance to the taxes, colonies began calling for a meeting to address this crisis together. And so this leads to a meeting called the Stamp Act Congress. Congress is just a fancy way of saying meeting, by the way. And so the Stamp Act Congress met in New York City from October 7th until October 25th of 1765. It was the first unified meeting of representatives from multiple colonies to protest British policy. 9 colonies sent delegates: Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and South Carolina. And some notable delegates that attended it were James Otis of Massachusetts, John Dickinson of Pennsylvania. He's going to be at the First Continental Congress. He's going to be at the Second Continental Congress. He was also the author of Letters from a Farmer in Pennsylvania. That'll be important later on. We also had William Samuel Johnson of Connecticut, and these guys debated how to respond while maintaining loyalty to the British Crown. So what did they do? The Stamp Act Congress produced something called the Declaration of Rights and Grievances, which asserted loyalty to the Crown and Parliament, declared that only colonial assemblies could tax the colonies, argued that trial by jury was a right, and petitioned the King and Parliament to repeal the Stamp Act. They also encouraged boycott of British goods, which would, align economic action with political protest. So it's a veiled threat. So what was the response? Well, the widespread protests, the economic boycotts, and pressure from British merchants, this is starting to hurt British trade. So in March 1766, Parliament repeals the Stamp Act, but it passes the Declaratory Act, asserting its authority to legislate for the colonies in all cases whatsoever. Why does it matter? The Stamp Act Congress was the first unified colonial action against British policy. It built the foundation for intercolonial cooperation, and it set the stage for future Congresses, including the First Continental Congress. But it also fueled the development of an American identity and a resistance movement. It showed the colonists that they had power when they worked together. So the Stamp Act was a first step toward unity and independence, proving that collective action could defend colonial rights. I always tell the kids in my class, the Stamp Act Congress is a lot like when you were a little kid and you went to the grocery store with Mom. And so while you're waiting in the checkout line with Mom at the grocery store, you see a piece of candy or something like a baby bottle pop off there on the shelf. and you reach up and you put it on the conveyor belt, and mom doesn't realize it's there until too late, and she picks it up and she's like, "What's this?" And she puts it back on the shelf, and you, being a child, drop to the floor in a tantrum and start kicking and screaming. Well, what happens? Mom has a choice to make. People are looking at her. They're judging her as a parent. Does she take the baby bottle pop back off of the counter and put it on the conveyor belt? Or does she drag you by your arm and smack you with a flip-flop the entire way back to the car? Well, in this case, the colonies are the child, the crown, the parliament, is the mother, and she puts the baby bottle pop back on the conveyor belt. Now, the lesson learned here by the toddler is, if I throw a fit, I can get my way. And the Stamp Act Congress, well, it's not a full-blown tantrum by any means, but it is a realization that if I really want to get something, these are the steps I need to take. And because of that, the colonists and the colonies learn a special lesson here, and this will really dictate the way that they address things they don't like coming in the future with the Boston Tea Party, First Continental Congress, Second Continental Congress, working its way towards the Declaration of Independence. So anyway, hey, like, comment, follow, share, all those things for more things that you should know by being alive. Well, because history shows us that even attacks on paper can start a revolution. Thanks for watching.